Brad Raffensperger continues his work trying to build voter confidence in the elections in Georgia before November, and the Secretary of State for Georgia joins us now. Welcome back to the show. It's good to have you on. As you watch, watch this campaign develop, how do you do that? How do you build confidence in a electorate that's so split, where some people don't think it was fair last time around, even though we all know it was, and deliver another free and fair election? What's your focus?
Well, since the last election, I've taken huge steps, monumental steps, to improve the security and voters' confidence in the process. Number one, I've done a 100% citizenship audit of our entire voter rolls. With the Biden-Harris open border policies, voters' top concern as it relates to elections is non-citizen voting. So I did a 100% audit. We found no non-citizens on the voter rolls, which means then only American citizens are voting. I just did the second audit, finished it up last week, and we got the same results. So I can tell my fellow Georgians, only American citizens are voting. And then if you look at what Heritage Foundation has done, that's on my side of the aisle, the right side of the aisle. They've ranked us #1 for election integrity, but even the Bipartisan Policy Center has ranked us #1, tied with Colorado for election integrity. But then now we have photo ID for all forms of voting, so we've shored up security on that. So if you vote absentee in Georgia this fall, you can have photo ID. So we have that for all in-person voting. Now we have it for absentee voting.
Now, there's a profile that Esquire magazine did about you. We could put up an excerpt of that on the screen to kind of talk about the bigger picture here that we're dealing with, about how you're the Republican, right, who stood up to Trump, and you're talking about this next fight, which you just outlined to us. But the quote is, if anything, the pressure and the scrutiny will be more intense for officials like Raffensperger this time around, because Trump has been hinting at a vengeance campaign against perceived enemies if he returns to the White House, already suggesting he may not accept the results of the 2024 election if he doesn't feel like they're fair. Now, in Georgia, a contingent of state Republicans spending the last few years working to dilute your authority. Has that really been happening, and have they had any success?
No, we just came through the 2022 cycle, and UGA and MIT did a poll, and over 95% of all Georgians trusted the results, had a great voter experience. In fact, what I've done is now requires all precincts, all voting precincts, to keep lines shorter than 1 hour on election day. Average wait time this last election and last several elections, the average wait time has been 2 minutes. So voters know that we have security, but we've also balanced that with a great voter experience of keeping those lines short.
Now, you're a Republican. By the way, are you planning on voting personally for Trump this time?
Well, as Secretary of State, I've made it a policy since day one not to endorse candidates and really get into that, because I think voters need to understand that we're going to make sure we have fair, honest, secure elections and accurate elections for all voters. It's up to the campaigns to get their voters out to vote.
But is the confidence among Republican voters, who I'm sure you're in touch with, you've been a Republican politician in that state for many years, has it changed? Do you sense a change? I know you talked about the changes you've made, but that was one of the issues, not just the presidential race, but I remember covering the Senate runoffs there right before January 6th, of course, the day before. And it seemed, Trump came down there and talked at some of those rallies, and if anything, seemed to suppress the vote. There was so much talk about how it wasn't fair, about how mail-in voting was nonsense. And, people like you would say, no, it wasn't. Has that perception among Republican voters changed, do you think, this time?
Well, if you look at voter turnout, we had over 5 million people show up in the 2020 cycle, which is a record. Then for the 2022 cycle, gubernatorial, we had over 4 million, which is a record for a gubernatorial cycle. I fully expect we're going to have large numbers, and that's what I prepared the counties for. So voters are out there engaged in the process and coming out to vote. And so I think also my large win in 2022 shows that voters have confidence in the job that I'm doing, which is following the law, following the Constitution, put my head down and doing my job.
I wonder what you think about, there's been this dispute back and forth about what Donald Trump meant the other day when he said, to this Christian group that, you don't have to vote again after the next election, whether there was something sinister there or was just comments that he makes off the cuff. But he tried to, explain or tell us what he was talking about in another interview. Here's the former president.
I said to the Christians in the room, thousands of them, I said, typically, Christians do not vote. Why it is, I don't know. You're rebellious. Something's going on. Don't worry about the future. You have to vote on November 5th. After that, you don't have to worry about voting anymore. I don't care, because we're going to fix it. The country will be fixed, and we won't even need your vote anymore, because, frankly, we will have such love. If you don't want to vote anymore, that's okay. And I think everybody understood it.
So as someone, Mr. Secretary of State, who obviously values the integrity of the vote, what did you make of those comments about how people might not have to vote after the next election?
I think our most priceless franchise is the right to vote. And so I encourage people to come out and vote every election, municipals, local elections, whenever you can vote, the primaries for your state house and state reps, and then obviously for presidential and gubernatorial years. And I would just say that right now voters are having a great voter experience. Lines are shorter than 1 hour. So we really check in with our electronic poll pads is 2 minutes. So it's just a really quick process. So enjoy the process. But I'd encourage everyone to participate in every cycle, because then you'll feel like you have really a voice, and you're able to exercise your vote and have really a determination in which way our nation's going to go. It's people coming together making that decision. At the end of the day, if you don't vote, then you can't really complain. And so if you want to complain, come on out to vote, and then you've earned that right.
Georgia was in the spotlight last time, and it looks like the way the polls are trending, it's going to be back there this time. And Brad Raffensperger, again, keeping an eye on things, the Secretary of State there. Thank you, sir, for coming on once again.
My pleasure.
Thanks so much for watching. Just go to joinnn.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.